Are you looking to grow revenues, increase profitability, or obtain financing? If so, you came to the right place.
Running a business is all about leadership. How do you become a better leader? Learn from the successful entrepreneurs and business owners how to lead your organization more effectively. That's why we created Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business, to help you succeed with your host, Andrew Frazier, Business Growth Pro and CFO and founder of the Small Business Pro University. Every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're joined by experienced entrepreneurs and business owners who share their secrets to success via live stream. Also, every Friday morning, we release a new podcast episode. Either way, you will learn about developing your business leadership skills from our roster of highly performing guest experts. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.u.com.
Good evening and welcome back to Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. My name is Andrew Frazier and I'm your host, and very excited to have another great show tonight. As you know, your business can only go as far as you're prepared to take it. So it's important to continually to develop your leadership skills so you can take your business forward faster and easier. And that's why I created the show, Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business, where we bring on different experts in different areas of small business to help you build your knowledge and your leadership capabilities. We've been doing the show for 4.5 years now, and excited to say we're over 200 episodes and over 200 guests, and going strong. So we appreciate everybody tuning in, your comments and your questions, and really looking forward to a great show tonight. Excited about talking to tonight's guest. His name's T.Shane Johnson, and we had a really great talk about really what it takes to be successful in small business, especially in the current environment. There's a lot of uncertainty. Things are continually changing. Things are becoming more competitive. But that's no reason not to succeed. So T.Shane's going to share some ways to really be able to, increase your success and help you prepare for the environment that you're in. And, the topic tonight is cracking the code, improvise, adapt, and overcome. And so tonight we're going to be talking to T.Shane Johnson about cracking that code. And we're looking forward to having a great discussion. So let me invite T.Shane on real quick now. Good evening, Darren. Welcome, Darren. Hey, T.Shane, how you doing?
Hey, good, sir. How are you?
I'm excellent. So thanks for joining me tonight. I'm glad that you're able to come hang out and talk a little bit of small business this evening.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks so much for allowing me the opportunity to chat with your audience and with you and share a little bit about, a whole lot about failures and a little bit about some successes.
Okay. Well, we always learn more from our failures than our successes. So that's important. You got to have your battle scars before you can actually help people. So where the alligators are in the swamp. So this should be really beneficial. Before we get started, I know who you are, but the audience really doesn't. So it'd be great if you could sort of introduce yourself to the audience, talk a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are, and then we'll get started right after that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm T.Shane Johnson, motivational speaker, best-selling author. For the past probably 7 years, most people have kind of known me for running across America or doing a bunch of crazy world records to raise awareness and money and causes for different companies, corporations, and organizations. I'm a father of a wonderful, beautiful young woman, and I'm a Marine Corps veteran. And my story kind of started out like a lot of us that served in the military. Grew up in a really small town in Florida. A lot of people don't realize Florida is actually, a lot of country. My family was cattle ranchers and orange growers. And the only opportunity out of that was to join the military. So I wanted to be part of the best, and I decided to have the opportunity to go to the Marine Corps, and I earned the title of being a United States Marine. I served with 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines in the Infantry Division for about a year, and then I went to 1st Reconnaissance Battalion for the latter half of my time. I was in 98 to 02, so right during 9/11. After deployment came back, I was attempted murder by MS-13 gang, and they basically hit me with a car, ran me off the road, and I caught the corner of a brick house off of a motorcycle at about 45 miles an hour. Broke every bone in my upper body. All of my major organs were lacerated. Basically flatlined out 3 times, had to learn how to walk, talk, breathe again, spent about a year in the hospital, and then became retrained myself, got back into fully operational with my unit before deployment over my unit left at the time to Afghanistan. Then I got out, had the opportunity to get into sales in mortgage banking. I didn't really know what it was, just needed to get a job and to pay some bills. And slowly throughout the years, started to develop myself in the sales community and become an executive leadership coach. Started to become more of a speaker, telling a little bit more about my story. Built a company, lost the company, was homeless for a little bit, went through some trials and tribulations of my own, and then tried to turn those things into some positive sides. And then fast forward, after doing my runs across America and my world records, I now run a coffee business with my 10-year-old daughter.
All right. So definitely some journeys are more windy than others. And, definitely you have a lot of that in yours, which is great because, you learn a lot from a lot of different experiences. And so definitely look forward to having a great conversation tonight. Definitely thank you for your service. I don't know. You mentioned that the Marines are the best. I might have to differ with that, given that I was a Navy guy, but we like the Marines a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So definitely, we look forward to talking a little bit more about this. But before we get started, I'd like to just share a little bit about the Small Business Pro University, because we run this show as one of the initiatives that we run out of Small Business Pro University, where we really create an ecosystem for helping entrepreneurs and business owners be more successful. So right after this video, we'll come back with T.Shane Johnson talking about cracking the code, improvising, adapting, and overcoming.
Many small businesses experience low or no revenue growth, and the owners are not making enough money. I founded Small Business Pro University to help you break that cycle by empowering you with greater knowledge and enhanced skills to lead your organization more effectively. Over the past 15 years, I've collaborated with organizations like the Small Business Development Center, Rising Tide Capital, Empower the Village, NJMEP, Rutgers University, and SCORE to work one-on-one with over 1,000 business owners and teach tens of thousands of people about business. My experience includes serving as a naval officer, managing businesses, graduating from MIT, earning an MBA from NYU, and achieving the CFA designation, which has prepared me to accomplish my mission of helping 1,000,008 business owners to sell more, maximize profit, and finance growth by 2028. My vision is to create the ultimate business ecosystem for entrepreneurs. Small Business Pro University empowers entrepreneurs like you to run their businesses more professionally and create sustainable enterprises. We employ my proven proprietary Masterpreneur Playbook framework to guide your journey along the Masterpreneur path and facilitate your Masterpreneur evolution to work on your business and scale faster and easier. Small Business Pro University provides access to valuable resources, partnerships, and relationships that will help you to sell more, maximize profit, and finance growth. Our Masterpreneur initiatives include the Small Business Pro Network, 100+ expert-led multimedia courses, intensive training workshops, Spanish language training, Leadership Live at 8:05 live stream and podcast, in-person power breakfast events, and advisory coaching, consulting, and training services.
Okay, hey T.Shane. So, you talked about a really windy journey, and obviously you had challenges during that journey. Um, you know, what is the code that you've cracked? What is it about the journeys that you've learned in terms of improvising, adapting, and overcoming?
Well, I think that that term is really coins from what I remember from the Marine Corps. Just because we're the smallest, most underfunded branch, so we have to do a lot with a little. And be able to improvise, adapt, and overcome is when a situation happens, you're never fully prepared for it. We can lay down systematic approaches to business. We can put together all of the plans. We can meet with all the coaches. We can do all the things, but the real life, just like in combat, never really compares. There's always an adjustment, always a change, always something that you didn't prepare for. And it is part of it, I think, is really the key thing. I wouldn't say I have specifically cracked the code, because I do think that everything that you do in business and life is in seasons. When you think you finally figured it out, you either get bored or want to change or adjust, or you want to scale or grow your business, or you want to decrease your business. So I think it's a constant evolving situation to where you're starting to navigate through these waters that just start to get a little bit easier. It's like your first day at boot camp, right? You realize you're there. This is the worst thing in your entire life or decision that you may have made. And eventually by the end of the time, you've come down to this fine, tuned, well-machined, and then it becomes better. And then when you get to the fleet or you get your unit, you're able to navigate those waters, but you have a base foundation that you can kind of, fall back on. And I think when you're running business, there's a lot of different factors. And I don't like to use my military career as the only basis of what you should use in order to develop a business, because that's not fair for those that haven't served. But I think, there are some truths to having a passion behind something. And I know now online there's all these different things: eat carrots, don't eat carrots, be passionate, don't be passionate, follow your dream, don't follow your dreams. I mean, I feel like every time you turn on a new podcast or a new motivational quote, it's telling you the opposite of the one you listened to 30 minutes ago. And I feel like it does get a little gimmicky in that. I think the reality of it is that throughout my life and the experiences I've been through, when something is easier, it is right. I think what happens is we get our arms wrapped around the challenge, the fight, right, from all of the different things, especially in the military community. We think that in order for it to be successful, it has to be tough. And I think in this time and stage of my life with running the current business I have with my daughter, that when it becomes hard, when it's challenging, it's actually not the path I should be going. When things start to just kind of fall in place and the pieces work and the partners and the relationships and the things go, then I'm on the right path. I think for the longest time, it took me a long time to kind of figure that out, because in business, I always figured you got to grind, you got to push through, you got to, no matter what, you can never quit. And a lot of those things playing in the back of my head, especially coming from the Marine Corps and my life's challenges for that matter, I've realized that I was more scared of success than I was failure. Because success, when you finally get to, well, my interpretation of it is that when you get into somewhat of a utopia of life that allows things to just kind of function and operate like they're supposed to, you don't know what to do. You've fought and you've been challenged so much that almost you become kind of addicted to the ever-changing way that entrepreneurship is. I think the reality of it is we're more scared of it to be positive. And I found that in running the business currently with my daughter, things just work. And it took me a little bit to try to get past that, to truly, really understand that it doesn't have to always be a fight. It doesn't always have to be a challenge. Yes, you do have to lay a core foundation, and you will go through some challenges. We go through them all the time. But it doesn't seem like something I want to hurry up and run away from.
Okay, no, definitely. It's good to simplify. And that's sort of like working smarter, not harder, which is easier said than done, of course. But what are some of the key decisions you've made that have allowed you to be able to work smarter and not harder?
Well, I think, getting past my own imposter syndrome, I think the hardest part for me was feeling worthy enough of success. My experience, that I mentioned about dying and come back to life, I was given a second chance at life. A lot of people don't get that chance. A lot of guys that we served with that went overseas during the time we went to didn't come home. And, so I questioned for the longest time, why me? What is it about me that makes this significant difference? And then I still to this day, the years of therapy and things that I go through, still question that. Am I living the life I'm supposed to? Am I doing the things that I'm supposed to? Am I, worthy of a second chance at life? So, for me, it was more about just trying to pay back that debt that was owed and develop and build, my business and just kind of have the tenacity to kind of keep going with it as much as possible.
Okay, great. So, definitely you talked a little bit about adapting under pressure. Matt has a question about, how can we train ourselves to adapt under pressure?
Well, I think there's not really the training. I guess that question answers itself, right? I think you have to continue to put yourself in that position in order to function at a high level, just like it in the simplicity of working out in the gym, right? In order to build muscle, you have to tear it down. So you have to put yourself under pressure. I think the difference is putting yourself under a systematic approach to pressure, a little more calculated of a risk. So if you're going to go through something, there's nothing wrong with going through something tough. Just make sure that the tough is tough because it's a challenge to get through, not something that you shouldn't be doing. I think that's the hardest part for people is that if you're going to run a business because you're going to run into challenges. I mean, you're going to run into cash flow problems. You're going to run into, inventory problems. You're going to run into all the things that come with the business. But it shouldn't be painful. It should just be a way to address the challenge, sit down. The best way to eat elephants one bite at a time, take that chunk, move on to the next one, advance forward, and continue putting yourself in a position where you learn. Just as a motivational speaker, changing terms, right? It's not necessarily pressure. It's just an opportunity to gain more knowledge. And in order to do that, you have to go through a little bit harder of a route in order to gain that knowledge.
Okay, great. And, one of the other things that is key, you mentioned is, you got to practice. The more you practice, the less pressure you feel because you already know what you're going to do. The military is a great example. When you're not at war, you're preparing for war. So, we always did drills. I'm sure you learned how to put your rifle together blindfolded and, all those other things so that when the time comes, you're already prepared and it's second nature rather than just going out there and trying to wing it, which that's what a lot of business owners do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely different than, being a naval officer where you guys practice putting the stapler together and then taking it apart. But, but yeah, maybe you guys did that blindfolded too, but it is, I think that it is, yes, immediate action drills are important and going through something and taking the time to be, that is that saying, slow is smooth and smooth is fast, right? Taking the time to review things. I do think in entrepreneurship though, here's one thing I do have to say about that. There are some factors that align with the military, but it is also a complete opposite of the military. I do find a lot of us that go into entrepreneurship really do it because we don't want to be a byproduct of what we actually did in that system. I think in operational capacity, the military lays some structure that allows you, again, to put a good foundation. But as an entrepreneur, I don't think military people make the best entrepreneurs sometimes because they are very calculated and they will think in the structure sense instead of that risk taking. And that's why I do kind of, joking aside about the military branches, I will say that the Marine Corps, though, is very effective in that kind of combat range with that. We are willing to kind of go on the edge almost as a little crazy or a little, out there, just like in, Bellawood and coining the term Tofelhundens. I mean, we really are saying we will do a little with a lot. And I think in entrepreneurship, you got to have a little screw loose in there somewhere to be able to kind of go through and say, you know what, maybe everyone's telling me that vision isn't the vision, but in my head, I see that vision. I mean, it's just like us with our hydroponic coffee, people thought there's no way that could be done. No one's ever done it. And I was just crazy enough, not too crazy, but just crazy enough to where I was like, you know what, I'm gonna run with it and make it happen. So I do think it's a fine line. Again, I think there are some pros and cons to it. It's not an end all be all to it.
Definitely, I agree. But just for the record, my staplers always worked. But definitely I agree. Every business is different. So every business takes different skills, different perspective to be successful. So there's no one thing you can do to necessarily be successful in every type of business. But there are skills that you can learn to be able to figure out how to be more successful in what you're doing, and be able to move forward. And that's a little bit about, I always say that, challenges create opportunity. And really similar to what you say, I say you have to be creative, you have to be flexible, and you have to be proactive if you're going to be successful in challenging times, but just in business in general. You can't sit back and wait for things to happen. You can't do the same thing as everybody else because you're new, you're smaller, and why do business with you? And flexibility is a hallmark of small businesses because that can be a competitive advantage. So definitely, we're talking about that. So now you're in business with your daughter, and that's got to be a little bit interesting. I could never be in business with my daughter because it would just, we just don't have that compatibility of personalities. So, how did you come about doing that? And, how is it that you're able to make it work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think, this kind of leads up to my experiences in life. What the best way I can kind of sum it up just from a time standpoint is over the course of 7 years, the world records and the runs across America were all for different causes. And again, it's, my own personal, mental health issues and the things that I address. But I think what it was is I focused a lot in those years on veteran homelessness and homelessness in general when it comes to teen homelessness. And I ran across to homeless communities, slept on Skid Row, slept in the tunnels in Vegas, slept in different type of halfway houses, all through the United States. And I really put myself and immersed myself into this community, trying to really truly understand the root part of it. And then, of course, my natural serving-based personality was, how can I fix it? What can I do? And I kind of realized, to be honest with you, that it was like the return on investment was so small that it didn't make sense, but I didn't want to give up. So I had to come up with a different way. And I started to realize, wait a minute, what was the root of the source here? How did this actually happen? Where did this all start? So I started kind of asking some questions during some of the interviews at some of the places I would go to. And one of the things that stuck out the most was how many fathers were absent in all of these different people's lives, all the way from adults to children. And you go to a lot of these shelters and there wasn't a lot of dads around. There wasn't a lot of support from fathers. And, my daughter at the time, she'd just been born. And I think it just really kind of hit me in that moment of realizing that the best way to fix a problem is to start within my own household. In the South, we say we don't like to talk out of both sides of our mouth. So I thought it'd be an important thing to go back and kind of look at that from a father's perspective and say, how can I play a better role? So I had created this book called Done by 230. And the idea behind Done by 230 was, if I could teach people, teach businesses, sales reps, whoever I talk to, how to effectively accomplish their goals by 230 before their children got out of school, could that be something that could be a success platform to allow them to be a better CEO of their home life? When we deal with business, I was just watching your commercials there, and you've got such an amazing systematic approach to, small business and how to make it successful in the infrastructure. And I always love that. I'm very always inspired by, veterans of all kinds, no matter what their background is to come out and lay some infrastructure to support people and continue to serve and be strong pillars of the community. And when I go to sales meetings or I'm standing on stage and I'm speaking and I'm having a conversation with people, I love the enthusiasm that people have about their experience in their business and how they connected with a complete stranger and how they made the sale or how they have that nurture and follow up. What is always mind blowing to me, though, is that we do not have that same type of approach to our own personal life. So a corporation will spend billions of dollars to develop a platform, right? Like a Sandler system, or Zig Ziglar training that will go in and help you build a relationship with a complete stranger. But for some reason, we just assume that because we've married somebody or that we've had children that we're just automatically effective communicators on both ends, for that matter. Though neither one of us have been through comprehensive training on how to communicate with each other, we're just under the assumption, as the general whole, as the public, that communication is something that it should just happen. And I just thought that was kind of odd that, we didn't focus that much attention on our personal lives. And as a speaker, that's my background. So communication. And I thought to myself, what if I developed this book and this strategy and taught people to kind of focus on that? Would it create a systematic approach to changing the foundation of our country? Would it pull back the family dynamic? Would it allow the children to be more engaging and connecting with parents? Allow the parents to be more engaging, connecting? All while now what's happening is devices are separating us time and time again, why corporate America is mass marketing us and pulling away from our families, which is the foundation of who we are, which is a whole different PsyOps program unto itself to break apart the American community. And, for me, I just didn't like that. I didn't like that. And I thought, the best part is if I actually lay that foundation, and then maybe hopefully we'll make an impact. So I'd written that book. I came downstairs. My daughter was about 6 years old. And if you have little ones or have had little ones when they're about that age, they're just drawing everywhere, right? You spend half your time telling how amazing art is to somebody who can't draw at all. And, so she had made all these pictures and done all these great things. And we had just gotten back. I just broke the world record for the most push-ups in 1 hour. And of course, my daughter's been involved in all this. She's been on stage with me ever since she was a little dude. And, I come downstairs after I finish the book, and she says, "You know what, Dad?" She says, "I want to start a business." And I think at that moment, that's the time where a parent is very pretentious, right? Like, "Oh, what do you know about business? You don't want to do," they start to kind of project their life's problems onto their kid and their brain, sometimes verbally. And it was a moment to where I could decide to be that pretentious parent, or I could listen to the ambitions of a young person, because we listen if they say they want to do dance. We listen if they say they want to do gymnastics. We listen if they say they want to play football, or they want to play baseball, or want to play hockey. But we don't really listen when it comes down to, I want to build a business, right? Because we think, you want to grow up. You don't realize it. Even though we scream, it's our passion. When my daughter did it, I think it was a time for me to listen. And I said, this is a great time, both selfishly and selfishly, that I can spend time, build, and teach her all of the things. Because the reality of it is one day she's not going to want to do it with me. And, when you die and you go through the experiences I've been through, you realize life is very short. And I know that I have a window with my child from, probably 6 to when she understands me, till probably about 13 when we no longer understand each other. And then the rest of the world has her. And I'll never get to have that time with her again. And I didn't want to do that. So I selfishly got behind her in the sense of developing a business that would allow us nothing but an excuse to be together, an excuse to travel together, an excuse to get on a call together, an excuse to have a meeting together, excuse to talk about things and discuss things and keep something that we were interested in. Also, while being a father, laying that foundation to have her have interpersonal skills and public speaking. And, she's homeschooled, so I homeschool her, and we go through and we talk about all the things, because I knew, and maybe one day she doesn't want to do coffee. Maybe she doesn't want to run a business, but she'll know how to shake a person's hand. She'll know how to look someone in the eye. She'll know how to negotiate. She'll know how to read through a contract. She'll understand profit and loss. She'll understand the trials and tribulations, the positives of business, and how there's more failures than there are successes to it. And I thought if she had that foundation, whether she ran a business or not, that it would put her in a strong position later on as a grown woman to be able to make really great decisions. And that was the foundation of it. And it's an amazing relationship. We laugh, we cry. We've been through really tough times. We've been through really great things. She's had experiences no kid's ever been of. She's been on major network TV shows. She's learned on how to speak. She, loves to close. That's her favorite part. She loves to sell. She works the floor. And I couldn't be more proud of her. And I love sitting in the background and watching this young woman develop and build a great business. It's extremely exciting, and it's a great time to spend. And unfortunately, I know it's not going to last forever, so I soak it up as much as possible.
Definitely, that's amazing that you're able to really spend that time with her. Also, just you learn so much about when you're young, because your mind is open. One of the things that really helped me was, my brother and I had a paper route in 4th grade. So, we delivered papers 7 days a week for 5 years. and you develop that discipline, but you also deal with people. You had to buy your papers, you had to sell them, you had to collect the money, and those skills are key. So it's great that you're doing that. And then also, I did something similar with my son in Boy Scouts. It's amazing to be able to spend time with your kids, see them grow and develop and learn, and also to sort of be there on the sidelines to watch. Because a lot of times, they're not going to show you who they really are, or tell you, but if you can see them interacting with other people, it's amazing how much, more mature and, better you think they are versus, if you only saw them, in their dirty room, not doing the dishes and not taking the trash out or whatever. So definitely, that's excellent. So, you mentioned a few things. One thing I want to share is, my most recent book's called The Masterpreneur Playbook, and it really outlines the 5 steps every business needs to take to go from startup to scaling. But not only that, it outlines the 5 stages of evolution every business owner needs to take to be able to successfully move their business from starting to scaling. So here's just a quick image. You start out by working on the concept of your business, developing your plan. In that stage, you're more of an entrepreneur or problem solver. Then you go to working in your business, where you're more of an employee supervisor. And really the key to that stage is communication. You got to communicate to market, to grow your business. Most people never successfully make it out of that stage. From there, you got to work on your business. You got to build enough of a business to work on. So you got to have enough sales. But then you also have to develop into a manager, being able to optimize, and then working on the future of your business and scaling. But, like you said, T.Shane, communications is so important. And, as a business owner, your most important job is selling and marketing. And that's all communications. So, definitely, it's great that you kind of help people to be able to do that more successfully. I'm going to take a break for a sec. We covered some great stuff. We'll be back as well. I'm just going to share a little bit about, one of the new capabilities that we're doing here through Small Business Pro University, which I think is tremendous and a huge need for a lot of business owners. You risk cash flow, tax, and profitability issues without timely, accurate financial records. Unfortunately, most business owners are not happy with their current bookkeeping situation. Many struggle with it themselves or have trouble finding the right help at a reasonable price. Even if you have a bookkeeper, there are often inaccuracies that can cost you money due to their lack of accounting knowledge and experience. Fortunately, it doesn't have to be that way. That's why I incorporated small business-friendly bookkeeping into our service offerings. We meet you where you are, whether you want to switch to save money or need us to clean up past issues, bringing everything current for tax and compliance purposes. Use the link below to schedule a complimentary discovery session to explore how we can help. www.sbprou.com/discovery. You have everything to gain and nothing to lose by scheduling a complimentary discovery session to explore how we can help at www.sbprou.com/discovery. Okay. All right, great. So, definitely bookkeeping is the foundation of a successful business. So now, T.Shane, you talked a little bit about it's important to find the root cause. you looked at the problem and the situation, and there's a lot of different things that you can do, but how do you move the needle? And many times we treat the symptoms rather than the cause. Um, how did what led you down the path to find that root cause? And, just in general, um, is that a common practice? And what are some things that, people can do to be better at determining root causes of situations that they're in?
Yeah, that's a hard one. I say it's hard because everybody's situation is a little different. And, I think people kind of throw out the Simon Sinek "Know Your Why" a lot. I mean, it is a good thing. I mean, understanding your purpose is like everything else, right? You call it your purpose, you call it your target, you call it your direction, you call it whatever. I was having a conversation with a client today, just kind of discussing a little bit about that. And I was saying, I think a lot of people I talk to, they never really have a firm direction. So if you ask them like, well, what do you really want to do? I feel that 90% of the people I talk to never really have a clue what they want to do. And the best way to develop your business is to start backwards, not forwards. I think the key thing is determining what you want that end result is. And I think with small business too, a lot of people feel like that they can't ever exit out of it. They got to stay with it forever. And I think people kind of get into entrepreneurship for a certain reason, right? Sometimes it's, I don't want to work for, a boss. I want to develop and have my own freedom. I want to do all these things. There's all these, this kind of euphoria that you have. And for some reason, they never really develop the end. There's never like, well, what is the end of that? How does it end? I think people stay married to it forever. And I think that, there is a world exists where you can actually enjoy your life. And if you're not careful, if you continue to go through and you only know the grind and the work and the grind and the work and the grind and the work, that when you get to the end, you don't have a whole lot of time to work on what is it that you actually enjoy and like. I don't think we as humans wake up and we're like, oh, we just want to work and build businesses. I do think that's probably a little bit of more of an American thing. And I do think that we do it because we equate it with the opportunity to potentially having freedom. When in fact, realizing that when we get ourselves into a business, because of all of the knowledge that we can't gain right off the bat, we end up not having that much freedom. And then we start to question a lot of things. So I think the real thing is just determining what your true purpose is. Is it hanging out at the beach in Portugal? Is it, spend time with your kids for the rest of your life? Is it build an exit for, 7-8 figures? What is that number? And I think if you spend more time figuring that out, there are a lot of different approaches and ways to systematically structure that. And that was the easiest thing. When my daughter and I developed the business, the very first thing we did after she developed the name of the logo is we wrote a check for an exit. And I even find that hard for myself sometimes because it's like, whoa, I really like this and we're doing some great things. I don't know if I ever want it to end, but the reality of it is it has to. In order for something else to grow, something does have to end. And so we wrote that check. We said, here's our number. We put our date on it. We kind of went that kind of old school Earl Nightingale sort of thought process. We put that structure and we said, here's where we want to be. And that allows us to kind of have our true north. It allows us to say, okay, today we're going through this, but we're going through this because on this date, this is where we want to be or what we want to do. And I think a lot of businesses don't have that conversation and they don't know what that is. And they just keep grinding. And I think that kind of puts you in a little dark black, hole. Because now it's, well, what's the point? Why am I doing this? I've been paying myself nothing for the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I'm about to get a divorce. My family's falling apart. I'm trying to do this. And it was all coming out of a good cause. And I think it's a large part of because people just don't have that direction, that end game. My daughter and I go to for the open call for Shark Tank next week, 2 weeks from now, I think it is. And so she and I spend, our nights when I'm not doing this or she's doing this, watching some of the episodes. And it's always interesting watching these small businesses and how uneducated they are about their business. They've got such a love and a passion, but they have no end game and no result and no structure, no sales. And it's mind blowing to me that you would go into a business and you would just grind every day with no true end game to it. And I do understand people have a passion and sometimes that is their passion, just serving. But You can't do that forever. The body's not going to keep up, both mentally and physically. So I do think it's important that you lay that structure to what it is you actually want, what that end result is. Take the time to do that before you really get involved in that business. Or if you're in your business, I guess that's why those retreats and things exist. But, go somewhere, as they say, and eliminate all distractions and really fine tune what it is that you want, and then come back and then just go after it with ferocious tenacity.
Okay, no, that's great. So, beginning with the end in mind, gives you your true north. I would say one thing and one way I look at, finding the root cause is, you got to look at the facts, and nothing's more factual than numbers. And that's why you got to start with your bookkeeping. But even everything else, a lot of times we delude ourselves and, or instead of talking about facts or talking about feelings or emotions or thoughts and assuming they're facts. So, definitely that's important. So I work with someone who won Shark Tank many years ago. So, definitely wish you much success there. I guess it seems like it could be kind of scary. How do you overcome the fear, in your daughter, or is she sort of just fearless on her own?
To go on Shark Tank?
Yeah.
Oh, my kid's not scared to go on Shark Tank.
All right.
We don't. That's the part where I think I do get aggressive on, is we don't allow that cancer to come in. We don't allow fear to get into us. That's not something. That is something I do become very militant on in that structure, is that we don't allow that fear to sink into us when it comes to those things. People are people. They're no different. They're no better. When we stand up there, just because they have money or don't have money doesn't make anybody above or below me. So we're coming up there to talk about a passion, and it's my daughter's business. As a father, I represent her in that capacity. She doesn't walk up looking at any man or woman in the eye with any kind of fear or intimidation or feeling below. She walks up there with the confidence that she is a CEO. Her age isn't a preference, that she's building and working on this, and respect is given as such, or I'll check them otherwise. But I think she's not scared to do that because she believes in what she's doing. She believes in herself, and that started ever since she was a baby. I've instilled that to her.
No, that's excellent. Definitely, you meet people in life that you thought were like, somewhere, and they're just regular people, and they many times they're not really as impressive as you would think they are. I remember when I was young, my uncle used to say, well, everybody puts on their pants one leg at a time. So, I mean, I haven't run into anyone who puts on the pants two legs at a time, but, maybe they're out there.
Yeah. Well, I think Wizard of Oz is basically the premise and basis of that whole thought process, right? I mean, it's really kind of the part of the movie is that, you're making something bigger than it really is. And in reality, it's just a regular person like you. And I think once speaking of cracking the code, I think that's a large part of once you crack the code to realize that people are people. They all have the same needs and wants. Somebody with money still has problems, no different than somebody that doesn't have money. It's just a different set of problems with a different set of issues, and it's all on how you address it. And the reality of it is that if you can have love for yourself, love for your family, and love for God, then everything else is pretty much cannon fodder.
Definitely. So, we've definitely covered a lot of good stuff. You mentioned that most people don't know what to do, and in business and in life. You talked about some ways that they could look forward and try and work backwards, but if you don't know what to do, what are some things that you should do? I mean, definitely as business, some people have to tell them, well, you need to get a job right now. and maybe come back. But, what are some ways that people can get more clarity, and what are some good things to do in the interim, because you still got to eat and everything else?
Yeah, I was just having this same conversation, and I think, look, here's the thing: you can't clump it all in. You've got to break it up into segments, and separate things. There are those that don't have children and don't have a family, that are single and don't have responsibilities. Well, that person should be all in, right? I mean, you're working a side job, making a couple of bucks, to couch surf or to have your own place or to do whatever, and a little ride or die car, and that's pretty much it, right? Then you've got, a family, or a couple, unless that couple is simultaneously on the same page about understanding the dream and vision and their kind of 5-year projection and vision board. That's going to be a challenging relationship, to understand, like, who's going to feed the family and who's not. And again, that isn't a matter of man, woman, partner versus not partner kind of thought process. It's really just that partnership, just like in a business partnership, but who's going to be responsible for what is sales, operations, so on and so forth, and making that clear vision. And then you have where, you're a couple and you have children. Well, when you decide to have children, you have made a leadership decision to take care of 2 other humans, or I'm sorry, however many other humans that you have in your family. And when you do that, that becomes priority number 1, not entrepreneurship. Unless you have the ability or a core foundation to support during that time, or a structure that puts that place in to have that steady stream of income, then your entrepreneurship goals, again, unless you've raised capital, you've done all the factors that can support a salary, it's important for you to kind of lay an infrastructure of a foundation of money, first, to make sure that the mortgage is paid, the rents are paid, the kids have food, the husband or the wife is taken care of, in the context of, again, based on a conversation that sets the expectations correctly. I think that's a large part of it. And then allowing your time to get out there and hustle, and then utilizing that as a side gig in order to kind of build, and then know that kind of break-even point, because you are right, numbers don't lie no matter what, and most people don't want to hear them. They're not fun to hear or to go through. But I will say, again, thinking more entrepreneur in that ship, is sales cures all. No matter what the numbers are, more sales means more revenue, and more revenue usually can fix about 99% of your problems. Then from there, you can fine tune bean count and start to cut things out and minimize and maximize profit. But sales is the key component. So I think breaking that up into segments and determining the structure and the expectations, both with yourself, right, that conversation you have, your partner, and then your family. And that'll allow you to kind of put that base in to say, okay, we need to work this job, do this, make this amount of money, determine this is our savings. Here's our goal. This much is going to be allocated to the business, and so on and so forth, versus everything I've got, every penny goes into this business because I don't have other humans to take care of. And I can fully focus on this platform. So I do think kind of setting those expectations up front and looking for ways to say, okay, here's where I'm going to go and what I'm going to do. Fortunately, in today's age, I mean, between ChatGPT and YouTube and the internet, gaining knowledge on how to build a business is in abundance. It's just a matter of finding the right one and the path for you, and going out there. I think that a large part of people forget about business is you got to sell it. I work a lot now with our coffee farm and the farming side, and it's interesting to me to work with farmers because they're so passionate about what they do, but they forget that it's still got to get sold. So they depend on a broker to sell that product, and that's why the farmer never makes any money. And it's a shame. If you could start to teach them to build a dynamic sales platform, you can start to find some more viability and more profit margins for their product. But you really got to get out there and hustle and sell that. So I think if I was taking a systematic approach other than the basics of your corporation and all that fun stuff, I think money can hire a lot of people to do a lot of things you don't want to do or can't do. So if you get out there and learn how to sell and bring in the business, I think that's better. I mean, look, as you mentioned Shark Tank, every time you get on there, what's the first question they ask them? What's your sales? What are you selling? Where are you at? And then once they get past that hurdle, now they start to kind of really dig into that. Like, all right, let's talk about that more. Let's kind of peel that back and see what we've got going on.
Okay. No, I mean, definitely, the sales piece is key. I mean, that's the first fact that they want to know about your business, because, everybody loves their business and thinks it's great. But, how do you, in an objective way, figure out if it makes sense? So I think it's powerful, what you said about, there's seasons in life and seasons in your business. And you got to make sure that, you understand the season you're in both of them, because, at the end of the day, your business is there to really improve your life. Your life shouldn't be there to improve your business. So, you're keeping that in mind is important. And, I like that you brought up the sales piece, because, I've worked with over 1,000 business owners one-on-one. And the biggest problem of most businesses is they're not selling enough. Of course, you got to have a caveat and say at the right price, because, if you're at the wrong price, you can't make it up in volume. But other than that, definitely sales and marketing is key to, to really your success in business. So, got a question here about dealing with negativity. A lot of people don't understand entrepreneurship, aren't really as supportive as they could be. And, even sometimes, yourself, you get a little bit negative. So, how do you deal with that when you come across it?
Well, when it's others, I don't. So, I mean, I don't expect people to see my vision the way that I do. I think when you set expectations, you set yourself up for failure. I don't need to please anyone. There's no one that I need to pay attention to that matters in that sense based on my vision and my dreams. With a business with my daughter, it's a matter of we know our path and what we're doing. We still hear it. Even running a father-daughter business, you would think that we wouldn't get negative, but we do get it. And, my daughter have this discussion quite a bit when we talk about it. It's noise that's not listened to. And as long as that radio station is not on, then you don't hear it. It doesn't really matter. So when it comes to negative people, they're time wasters, and time is money. And I'd rather spend that time focusing on my business. So I just don't pay attention to it. And I've taught her the same way. Some people will look at my daughter and they'll make a comment and say, it's a novelty item of what you're doing, or child labor, or some stupid comment. And the reality of it is that that's just people projecting their own failures and fears of not accomplishing anything, and they're a complete waste of my time. So I just don't bother with it. Now, what is a great question is your internal negativity. That one is a scary one, because if you have not taken the time to truly value yourself and see your vision, I would say that voice can get a hold of you a lot more than the outside voices, especially if you've been doing it for a long time. I think people associate entrepreneurship like it's a quick fix, and it's definitely not. And it truly is true, 15 years to an overnight success. And yes, there are a few anomalies, just like it is somebody that scratched the ticket or played the right lottery and won, $500 million. More than likely, that's not going to be any one of us. So it is going to be a long path. And I do think that sometimes your own internal voice can start to get to you and be quite negative. I will say for me, as far as advice is concerned on that, I don't have good advice. I'd love to say that I do, just for the context of the question and to make it sound like I know what I'm talking about. But I believe more in authenticity. I don't know. I question that every day. I question all of my failures 24/7. I'm a father. I absorb the pain of a family, of my daughter, of experiences. I'm a leader. So that is something that I have to carry with me. The thing is that no matter what I say or what I do, one foot has to be in front of the other. And I'll still say something or I'll still question it, but I never stop. And that's the key thing. I think that if those things allow you to stop, now you've got a problem. But you're going to have it. There's no right answer for that. You're just going to have it. You're going to question your decisions. You're going to second guess yourself. You're going to think that you're not worthy of it. All that is normal, and it's going to happen. The difference is that if you stop and allow it to stop you, now it's won. Otherwise, you just keep moving forward. You take another step, and there's going to be a day where you're going to wake up and you're going to be like, I've got it all figured out. Everything is going great. Just enjoy that season. Enjoy that moment. Be present. Live it, laugh it, that good contract, that big sale. You finally made some profit, whatever it is, and run with it. Take the time to enjoy it. Go out to dinner, go out on the boat, go fishing. I don't know, whatever it is you do, but Don't negate it. If as much as you welcome that negativity, also welcome that positivity. Plays an equal role.
Okay, no, that's great. Definitely, you want to celebrate your wins. In entrepreneurship, you have high highs and low lows. So definitely, sometimes in that lows, it can be easier to doubt yourself. But one other thing that plays into it is unrealistic expectations. A lot of people go into business with unrealistic expectations. And that can lead to discouragement. So definitely, those are key things. So, we've covered a lot of great stuff tonight. An hour is just not long enough, but we only have so much time ourselves, and the audience only has so much time. So before we go, I'd like to have you share 3 key things that you want people to take away from the show, because, number one, we covered a lot of stuff, but also, many times people can't remember more than 3 things. So we want to give them the 3 things that they should really take away and can use to really work to move forward as a leader and move their business forward faster and easier. So while you're thinking about that, I'm going to play a short video about our upcoming conference. And, if you're in the New Jersey area or you just travel to New Jersey, it's worth the trip. We're going to have our conference this summer, and here's a little bit about it. We're here at the Small Business Power Breakfast and Conference. Excited to say that we had a great day.
This event was a wow. Every panel, every speaker has had so much amazing content and good information to share.
This is a good day to put aside to come out and do some learning, but also make some great connections. The ones that I made were impactful.
Hi, I'm Andrew Frazier, masterpreneur and founder of the Small Business Pro University. For more than 10 years, our events have directly resulted in tens of millions of dollars in both revenue and financing for attendees. Join me at the Small Business Pro Power Conference on July 25th at NJ Pack's Nico Kitchen and Bar in Newark, New Jersey, to learn best practices, enjoy great networking, and gain useful knowledge. We will supercharge your day. I look forward to seeing you at the Small Business Pro Power Conference on July 25th in NJ Pack at Nico Kitchen and Bar in Newark, New Jersey. To learn more and register, visit www.sbpru.com/conference. All right, good evening. I'm here with T.Shane Johnson, and we're talking small business. The topic tonight is cracking the code, improvising, adapting, and overcoming. We had a great talk tonight, but definitely would appreciate you breaking it down. Like, what are the 3 most important things that we should take away from the discussion this evening?
Well, I think systematically, the first one is sell. I find too many times people just don't want to sell the business. They love working on it. They love the passion. They love being part of it, love the community, love the people, but they don't like to sell. So no matter what you're doing, get out there and sell it as much as possible. Tell the story, share the story. Any and everybody that wants to listen, sometimes when they don't, tell them anyways, right? So just sell. I think the second thing is the difference between being an entrepreneur and a wantrepreneur, right? If it's not something you're passionate about, it is going to be tough, and there's going to be a tremendous amount of pain with it. So unless you've got a direct plan and a reason as into why you're doing it, I'd recommend just going to get a regular corporate job, get you a good paycheck, live your life, have your weekends, your 9 to 5s, and your corporate paid days off. Don't jump into entrepreneurship unless it's truly something that you want to do and you have a clear, direct plan of what it is the accomplished goal is, right? And then I think the last thing is, pretty cliche, just don't ever give up. No matter how tough it gets, you're going to want to. I think about it probably once or twice a week. I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it and think that everything is great and fun, and it's not. It's tough. It's really tough. But you just keep pushing forward. You put one foot in front of the other. You just keep moving, and you go to the next step and the next step and the next step. And again, as long as you have that clear, defined plan of the end game, you'll know that you're moving one step closer to it.
Hey, excellent. So sell and hopefully market so that it makes it easier to sell. Definitely that's the most important job of most business owners, but many people don't understand that when they go into business. Business isn't for everybody, and it's not for everybody all the time. So, you need to go in with a plan and a passion, which is great, and don't give up. All those are key things that business owners need to hear and know. It's not easy, but it can be done successfully. So, no, excellent. So definitely appreciate you spending your time here this evening with us. Any last things you want to share before we close out?
No, thank you so much for allowing the opportunity to share my story. It's always a pleasure to be able to share that with the audience and answer questions, and hopefully, be able to alleviate a little bit of pain or frustration, or at least kind of shorten the gap for those that are listening. And hopefully my experiences played a part and inspired you to continue pushing forward. But again, we're always thankful for the support. So we appreciate that.
Okay, no, thanks for sharing your expertise. We've had some great comments, some great questions. So, obviously, it's been a positive experience for people. So, thanks again. And we'll just hang on for a minute. I'm going to close things out, and we'll catch up in a minute. So, another great show. I appreciate everybody's comments, questions. Thanks for tuning in again tonight. And, hope you got a lot out of it. Definitely I did, and I'm sure you did as well. So, thanks for joining us. I appreciate T.Shane really, sharing his story, his expertise, and some key things that he's learned that can be helpful for us as business owners. So, as you know, each week we have a special guest and a different topic. So looking forward to next week as well. The topic's going to be shifting paradigms, the key to making better business decisions. So looking forward to that next week. My guest is Corey Kogon, and, we're really going to just talk about making better decisions. One of the key things about successful business owners is they make good business decisions, but there's a joke where they say, well, how do you learn how to make good business decisions? By making bad business decisions and learning from them. Hopefully we can avoid some of your bad decisions by listening, tuning in next week. Looking forward to that. So always remember that at the end of the day, the more that you know, the faster and more successfully your business is going to grow.
Thank you for listening to Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.u.com.